Hello and welcome back to our SAP Enablement series. My name is Stefan Müller and I am glad to introduce you today to the topic Qlik SAP Connector Setup and Installation. For those who are new to the topic, I'd like to start with a short explanation what the Qlik SAP Connector is all about. The Qlik SAP Connector provides you with a set of 9 SAP certified connectors to digest data in Qlik Sense from all default SAP interfaces, regardless if you run SAP ERP, BW or HANA. In addition to the actual data extraction, the product also supports the transfer of SAP security definitions and can consider SAP internal routines. And as Qlik Sense is by default capable of consolidating data from different sources, SAP data can, of course, be combined with non-SAP data. Okay, let's assume we convinced you to use our SAP connector in your SAP landscape. How to get it up and running? Exactly this question I want to answer in this video session. There are mainly 4 steps to follow, which are reflected in my agenda. The action items are split between 2 environments, your SAP and Qlik infrastructure. At first, we need all relevant software packages. Then a SAP transport installation has to be executed before some configuration steps on the SAP side are required. Finally, the SAP connector has to be installed on your Qlik Sense enterprise service. Let's have a look to all these steps in more detail. First step, download all resources from our website. Therefore, browse to demo.qlik.com/download. Log in with your Qlik ID, jump to the section Qlik Connectors, and select the product Qlik Connector for use with SAP NetWeaver in the current release. That is, as of November 2020, version 7.0.4. Download the file Qlik SAP_x64setup.exe. As the required SAP transports are not part of this installation file and have not been updated from the previous release, we have to select version 7.0.3 afterwards in order to pick them from that download section. Second step, transport installation. The SAP system needs to be prepared by the SAP basic team to communicate with our different connectors. We provide a bunch of transport files for data extraction and specific user profiles. The transports differ depending on the target SAP environment, ERP or BW, and the intended connector types to use. It is important to install the transports in the correct order. Import the appropriate data extraction transport into the base client, client independent, first. Import the appropriate user profile transport in every client where they will be used, client dependent, afterwards. In our online help, you find a matrix and further documentation which transport is required according to your requirements and how to import them. The link to the documentation you will find in the description of this video. Short side note. The transports in the downloaded zip file have a slight different naming convention than the transport descriptions in the matrix. The first 3 characters in the matrix represent the file type of the transport itself, e.g., the data extraction transport for BEX info provider in SAP system 7.00 to 7.2x is B7TK900151, but the actual file name is K900151.B7T. Third step, SAP configuration. In order to use our SAP connectivity, SAP user credentials with the appropriate SAP permissions are required. Our user profile transports provide different predefined user roles, which could be assigned to a new or existing SAP user, where it doesn't matter if you choose user type, system, service, or dialog. All these roles start with QTQVC. So it is up to your choice. Respectively, it depends on your security guidelines and SAP roles concept if you apply our standard roles or adjust them to your specific needs. In terms of SAP configuration tasks, there is an additional to-do when you plan to use the SAP Extractor connector. In this case, the Qlik SAP Network Service has to be installed, which supports parallel loads and allows the use of extractors containing many fields with a sum of field characters greater than 1000. It is recommended to install this network service on the same Windows system where the Qlik SAP Connector is installed in order to provide the highest level of security. As the Qlik SAP Network Service communicates with an SAP application server via the SAP Gateway, it has to be whitelisted there. Furthermore, the SAP system has to be opened for the intended SAP Client, which means, inter alia, that permissions for cross-client object changes are required. Helpful links with further details concerning the SAP Extractor Connector setup are attached to the description of the video. Finally, you need to run the installation of the SAP Connector software package in your Qlik Enterprise client-managed landscape. Please be aware that the setup has to be executed on each Qlik server node in case you maintain a multi-node Qlik site. Afterwards, a license assignment is obligatory in order to activate the product. Let's have a look at a short demo how the installation process looks like. I am logged in on a virtual Windows server where Qlik Enterprise is already installed. I have stored the executable setup file in the directory C install SAP. Double-clicking on it will display the installation wizard. I confirm the license agreement, hit the install button, confirm the user access control message. The installation process starts and in best cases succeeds. When completed, we can leave the wizard. The Qlik SAP Connector is installed in two areas: Program Files and Program Data. In Program Files, you will find two folders. SAP Connector Program Files for Qlik are installed in C Program Files, Common Files, Qlik Custom Data. SAP Connector Program Files for Qlik are stored in C Program Files, Common Files, Qlik Tech Custom Data. Side note: you cannot influence whether to install the SAP Connector for Qlik or Qlik. Always the relevant files for both versions will be installed. In C Program Data, Qlik Custom Data, log files will be saved in a subdirectory for each connector. For example, SAP SQL Connector, log, timestamp folder, and here it is. Last step now is the license entry. Have your license and control number at hand. In the case your Qlik server is not permitted to access the internet and communicate with our license server, you need in addition a so-called license enabler file, abbreviated as LEF-File. There is a Qlik support article online describing how to request the LEF-File. The link to it you will find in the description of the video. Okay, how to proceed? The license activation dialog is a bit hidden. You have to switch to the folder C Program Files, Common Files, Qlik Tech Custom Data, Qlik SAP SQL Connector, and hit the file Qlik SAP SQL Connector exe. Click on the Help button and choose Update License. On the screen popping up, you can fill the 4 relevant fields when internet access is given, such as license key, control number, name, and company. Otherwise, you choose the option Enter License Text, where you paste your LEF-File and press Update. Now you should get a success message and you can close the connection screen by hitting Cancel. That's it. Now the Qlik SAP Connector is ready to use. How can you prove it? Just open the Qlik app, jump to an existing app or create a new one, open the script editor, checking the list of available data connections. You should now see all SAP connectors available on the Qlik Enterprise environment. Depending on the connectors you intend to use, there is an additional configuration step. Not all connectors are available within the standard of Qlik today. However, all connectors can be used within Qlik Sense, but without a wizard for script generation. In detail, in Qlik Sense are currently missing the report and query connector used in SAP ERP, respectively the DSO and OLAP connector used in SAP BW. But the corresponding program files of the SAP connectivity for QlikView can be leveraged instead. These files are also installed by default during the setup process of the SAP connector, as you have learned already in the previous demo. So a customized setup is required to make these connectors work in Qlik Sense. Let's jump to a demo to discover which steps have to be performed to implement this solution. Okay, so I switched back to my virtual machine where I have installed the Qlik SAP connector before. And the first step to do is to copy the relevant connector files from the QlikView installation path to the Qlik Sense installation path. I have opened already two Windows Explorer windows. And the first is pointing to the QlikView installation path of the SAP connector. There is a subdirectory called Qlik SAP Connector, and in this directory you will find all the relevant DLLs we need in Qlik Sense so that we can address this missing connectors. So what we need to do here is to just copy the complete folder to the installation path of the Qlik Sense SAP Connector files. And this is represented here. What we just do is paste it in here. We need administrative privileges to do so, and then it will appear in this directory. So next step, in order that Qlik Sense recognized new connectivity, we have to restart the Qlik Sense engine service using the Windows Services console. So Qlik Sense is now aware of this additional DLLs. And now we have to create a data connection to make use of these new connectors. However, there is no configuration wizard or connector template available in Qlik Sense just by copying these DLLs. So we have to proceed with the workaround, and this means we have to create a dummy connection in a Qlik Sense application. So I have prepared that already. So we jump to the hub, open a dummy application, jump into the app, in this case into the data load editor, and create a new connection. And for our dummy connection, we will make use of the OLEDB connector by using the provider for Microsoft Directory Services. And we can just enter dummy content here like data source C. That does not need to make sense. Important is that we define a meaningful name here. As we provide a customized data connection for the report connector, we should reflect this connectivity in the naming of the data connection. Perhaps we could add that this is used in a SAP ERP environment. We click on create. The the data connection will be created. And the next step is to configure this data connection with meaningful parameters. For that reason, we will jump to the management console. This data connection should now appear here. Here it is. We double click it to edit it. I will remove my username to prevent any confusion when other people would use this SAP data connection. And now we have to modify the connection string, the user ID and password field. This connection string must correspond to a certain syntax. Of course, we could enter the connection string manually here, and we have in mind how the syntax should look like, but there is an easier way. Just use QlikView Desktop to create the proper connection string and copy it into here. So I have created already a QlikView application, and in the load script of this application, I have configured a connection string to the Qlik SAP report connector. And what I now do is I just copy this line of code, jump back to my management console, and enter the connection string here. What is important, due to the fact that username and password is encoded and cannot be used this way here in the data connection configuration, so I have to remove this part and enter username and password instead here. And apply the connection. Now everything relevant is configured and the connection could be used now in the Qlik Sense application. That means when I jump back to my load script editor of my dummy app, reload the window, I will find the proper data connection here and can start to create a Qlik Sense application based on data from the SAP report connector. Side note, as we do not provide any wizard for these custom connectors, it is also meaningful and beneficial to create the load script, in this case for the report connector, in Qlik View, because there is a wizard, and copy then the piece of code into the Qlik Sense application. Okay, that's it so far. Final note, all the steps are already documented in an article available on GitHub. The link to this documentation is attached to the description of this video. This concludes my contribution in terms of Qlik SAP Connector setup and installation. I hope you found it helpful and I wish you much success with the implementation of your SAP integration in Qlik. See you again in one of our further learning videos of our SAP enablement series. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.